I do think that individuals could be your greatest strength or your biggest weakness, depending on how they're trained. Like the best thing that I heard early in my career, the CISO told when I was in an incident response team, was never let a good incident go to waste. Like, can I get AI integrated into my program? And it's like, well, do you have the basics in place? Do you know what's on your network? Cybersecurity needs to be a business enabler, not a disabler. The second that you disable business because of cybersecurity, you're probably not going to be there much longer. No one really has an understanding of how to govern AI in a business.
You're listening to the Ransomware Rewind, where we break down the latest cyber threats, data breaches, and security solutions that matter to you and your business. Stay secure. Stay informed. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Ransomware Rewind. We have Nick Oles from Entoo Security. He's a master of all things cybersecurity and especially phishing. He just wrote a book called How to Catch a Phish, which educates business owners and CISOs on how to identify and stop attackers. Nick, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself and your origin story. How you got into phishing and cybersecurity?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So super excited to be on here. This is one of my favorite things to do is talk about cybersecurity, talk about my book. I've got a copy right here. How I got into cybersecurity. So I started out doing, regular network administration in a medium-sized company. We didn't really have a cybersecurity team at that time, so it was kind of a shared responsibility. And I remember an individual brought a computer to the help desk, and they said, "Hey, I'm a sales individual. I can't access any of my files. This is crushing my business right now. It says I need to pay this fee on MoneyGram." And I was kind of like, that seems pretty weird. So we take a look at the computer, we open it up, and it said their file has been locked. The only way to get their files back was to pay money to the FBI to unlock their files through MoneyGram. Yeah, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know anything about the FBI. I'm pretty new in my career, but I know there's no way that they're taking uh, payment through MoneyGram. I think it also had Western Union on there too. And I'm like, there's no way this is right. So I start doing some research, and I look into it, and it was like the early stages of ransomware where they didn't actually lock your files, but the screen like locked your screen. You couldn't get to
Okay, so
anything.
it's
It
like
was like
scareware.
yeah, it was kind of like scareware. It was like a pop-up. And if you've been in the industry for a while, you remember like the old pop-up viruses that would come up. You'd have like 1,000 pop-ups on your screen. You just have to click next and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I remember, depending on what sites you're going to. Yeah.
yeah, and it was
GeoCities.
wild. It was like the whole screen was blocked out. You couldn't do anything. And as I researched this more, again, this is very early days. Like I'm on forums and stuff like that, trying to figure that out. And I'm like, this is insane. Like these people are making money and they're impacting, individuals that don't know any better. They've clicked on something, they've downloaded something, and they can't do their job, and they're getting paid to do this. And I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. It just like blew my mind. And I'm like, there's all these different ones. I saw the one on the screen in front of me, but as I'm researching these, there's other themes, there's other messages, there's other ways to get payment. And I'm like, wow, this is really like bad guys like getting paid and cops and robbers type environment. So at that point everything just like switched for me, and I was like, I'm fascinated by this. I'm really interested in cybersecurity. I'm really interested in viruses and how they work and how these criminals are making money off of it. So I gotta pivot a little bit, get out of the networking, get more into cybersecurity. And that's kind of what led me down the phishing road. As I started getting into more cybersecurity roles, phishing was kind of like the basis of our cybersecurity programs. It was like, how are we educating our people? What are we looking at? What are we getting? What type of attacks are we seeing? And how can we get better? And that's basically how I wrote this book. I took a role at a large organization. We had no formalized process of how to analyze phishing emails. We were getting, dozens of phishing emails reported every single day. And it was kind of just like, well, we had this informal, like maybe you could look at it, maybe you could do some research, but there was no step-by-step process. And I was going through all these different blogs and watching videos and stuff like that, and nothing was in like a centralized fashion of, if I'm a defender or I'm just an interested user or someone's parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, cousin, something like that, like how do I interrogate an email, figure out some signs that are suspicious, and then go from there. And that's why I wanted to write this book, was to bring all these different resources together, bring some of the experiences that I had held over the years in different jobs and stuff like that, and put it all in one process. And then, life happened. I got really busy. I put it off to the side for a while. And then I kind of ran out of excuses of why I shouldn't start this book. So, started the book, went through the process. I had a little bit of a change in direction. My initial thought process was I'm going to write this super technical book because I'm a technical guy. I want to dive into headers and tools and, different message IDs and things like that. And as I started going through that process, and, that's extremely difficult. That stuff moves really fast. By the time I take a screenshot of an Outlook email, in 2025, and I get that published, like it's going to change 3, 6 months later and look vastly different. Or where they
Yeah.
put the sender address or the IP address in the header, like that's going to move really quick. So that's really hard to do. So then I took a step back and I said, this impacts a larger audience. It's not just the level 3 and 4 analysts, the IR teams, stuff like that. This is anyone that has an email. So this is the moms, the aunts, the uncles, the brothers and sisters, the people that aren't technical, but also the people that are technical that are in this field that work in IT or work in cybersecurity. So I wanted to reach a broader audience and make it so you didn't have to have, a computer science degree or cybersecurity degree or something like that, or a certification. Like anyone that has email could take this book, look through it, pick something out of it and learn something and get better and use, again, free tools. I'm a big fan of free tools. Everyone, loves to throw money at all these different processes and tools and stuff to do things. AI right now is the big thing. It's like, can we work AI and ML into everything? And it's like, no, you don't have to. There's free open source tools you can use right now. You can get like a 95% solution on whether or not this email is good, if not higher, without, investing a ton of money. And you learn
You've
stuff. And it,
investigated. You've investigated. Sorry to interrupt you. You've investigated like thousands and thousands of emails, uh,
yep.
phishing emails. What do they all have in common?
So all of them really, they're preying on something within the human nature. Like that's what they all come down to. They're doing something to get you to take an action. There's really only like three actions for you to take when you get a phishing email. It's click a link, interact with an attachment, or send some sort of sensitive information. That's it. And that's what all three of them all boil down to. Like when I started in the industry, there was a lot of attachments coming through. I don't see that very much anymore now. The tools have gotten a little bit better. It's harder for the attackers to do. There's a lot of scanners in place and things like that. Now it's a lot more link and information based because links are super easy to spin up. You can tear them down really quickly. They're hard to detect. You can impersonate something else. And then requesting that sensitive information, just saying like, hey, can you give me, a password, a social security number, access to something, a way to get in. And that really hasn't changed over the entirety of my career. It's just the methods have switched a little bit. A lot of, preying on emotion. I see that a lot. So if there's like a major event that goes on, like COVID-19, or there's a hurricane or a natural disaster or something like that, the attackers will spin up campaigns really quickly and say, hey, this is a relief act, or this is something, to help the victims of this, adverse event, or someone's in trouble, they need your help, things like that. And at the end of the day, people are people. So everyone gets tired, everyone gets sleepy, everyone gets confused, or they're in a hurry, so they don't have the time to investigate every single email to their fullest. And everyone's fallen for a phishing email at some time. Like I've written a book on this. I've done this for my whole professional career, tons of certs, traveled all over, and I've fallen for phishing emails. And I feel like everyone has. And if you say you haven't, you're either lying or you just don't know that you've fallen for it, um, or you
Remember
will
a
soon.
case, going to what you're talking about with the hackers taking advantage of, you know, current events. All those dealerships that were hacked with the CDK hack. Well, they
Yeah.
didn't hack the dealerships; they hacked the software that all the dealerships use,
Yep.
and then they used the list of dealerships, and they said like, if you're suffering from CDK, call this number, and it was actually from the phishing people. So they're like taking advantage of the people that already can't do their business because they can't use this software that got hacked by the same people. So like they are taking advantage of people, and I think that one thing that people don't think of is like, yeah, your emails out there, and you're part of the AT&T hack, or a part of the Coinbase hack or something like
Yep.
that, and you're like, oh well, my info is out there. What am I going to do? I can change my password and that, but one thing that people don't think about, and tell if I'm right on this, is that once they get those lists, they're going to act like they're that company and then fish because fish you because they know that you use that service.
Yeah, 100%. So that's just like a use of credibility. So they know they have that piece of information. They say, "I know that you use this information or you've used this service before. I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to leverage that known reputation of that organization or something like that to kind of trick you or to try and entice you to interact with it." The other thing that I've seen in waves over years, going back 5 or 6 years, is attackers getting leaked password information. So you talked about, some of these major breaches, maybe like a LinkedIn breach or something like Sprint. You could pick any company. There's been so many of them, but they'll get a list of old passwords, and then they'll leverage that and say, "Hey, we know this is your password. We've seen you doing something bad on your computer, or we have some of your files locked. If you don't pay us, we're gonna take some negative action against you." And that's been super convincing because people, they see that leaked password. They see spring 2023 and they're like, "Yeah, I used that 3 years ago." How do they know that? Like, that's my password. And you're like, "Well, because you used it for 9 accounts and 6 of those 9 accounts got breached. So all that information is out, not even on the dark web, just on the regular web, so anyone can access that."
Have
And
you
then the
gotten that email?
attackers,
I get the Coinbase one all the time. I get the Coinbase call, and yeah, it's like they've sold my information a million times. And it's like they'll call up and say, "Yeah, we see that someone attempted to get $50,000 out of your Coinbase account." Like, yeah, 50 grand in my Coinbase account. Like, then
yeah,
they
you're like,
hang
"Well,
up. Like,
yeah, you're like, good luck, because I don't have 50 grand in
yeah,
me." But yeah, so that happens, all the time, and it's not stopping because it works, and that's like the important thing to understand is like the reason why these attacker groups are using these techniques and methods is because people click on the links or they pay them money. It's profitable, and that's what most of these come back to. It's making money for the attacker groups. They could sell some of that information, or they could steal money, like you mentioned the Coinbase thing. They could drain your account.
be
They
pretty
could sell
easy too.
access. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coinbase attacks are very easy. Once you get access in, I mean, then you just move it to a cryptocurrency and rinse and repeat till you can get it out to something else. It's very hard to trace. It's new, so like the law enforcement side of that hasn't caught on yet. They're not as rapid to respond, and it's challenging. Uh, so yeah, that's very common. And you brought up, Joe, like all these different breaches that come out in, I've lost track of how many times my information has been compromised, how many times my social security number has been out there, things like that. Like my general recommendation, there's nothing you can really do to stop all these vendors from getting breached. Once you use this information, you provide it to them, like it's in their hands. You're hoping they're doing the best to protect their company information. But anytime you get a notification, my general rule of thumb is reset all the passwords right away. For that and any other account that if you are using it in multiple ones, hopefully you're not, reset that right away. Multi-factor authentication, if you're not using that, 1000% should be turned on everywhere you can. That makes it a lot harder for the attackers to get in. And then I like to recommend data deletion services. They're services that will go out on your behalf and take you out of some of these data broker services that will sell your information and post it online and stuff like that. That just helps reduce the footprint a little bit. That's available for you. 100% is not going to stop it. Nothing is foolproof. You'll still get breached at some point, but you have less information out there available. You're using different passwords and you're making it harder, so that hopefully, if your information does get in the hands of an attacker, it's a little bit more difficult. Maybe they move on to someone else, or maybe they just say, "Hey, this isn't worth going down this path right now."
Yeah, so if you're part of a breach, you want to change your password. You want to make sure that your MFA is on.
Yep.
And another thing that you want to do if it's a financial type of a vendor is to freeze your credit.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So I'm also a big fan of freezing your credit. It's a little bit of an inconvenience if you're using it a lot. I get it, but it doesn't take much time. And again, that's a great example because it makes it harder. If they're going to try and pull loans, pull financial information from you, they go through this list, they see your credit's frozen. Like if I was a bad guy, I would just move on to the next person because I'm like, I don't want to go down that path of trying to unfreeze it and hope that I can get through that process through the different credit bureaus when I can just go to the next 5, 10 names down the list and grab someone that doesn't have a
Because
poor
there's
credit
three credit
information.
unions: Equifax, TransUnion, and what's the last one? There's a third one.
Experian maybe
TransUnion.
Experian.
TransUnion.
Experian.
Yeah.
Experience the big dog, right?
They're the one. They've had a big breach
Yeah.
that they hid for a while. Um, but yeah, just if you're out there and you're listening to this, one piece of advice you could take home is like go and freeze all your credits right now. You don't need it unless you're buying a car or buying a house, uh,
Yeah.
applying for a credit card, and you can thaw it for one day while you apply for it, whatever you're applying for, and then it gets frozen again. So that way you're always pretty much not safe, but you're preventing somebody from taking out a loan in your name.
Yeah, yeah, it's a proactive approach to before your information gets breached. But if you've got to be reactive, like you get those notifications in the mail or you get free credit monitoring, like it's a good thing to add. So yeah, I love it.
I was going to ask a question. And we're at a point now where we have zero trust and the edge is pretty secure. Would you say humans are the last level of defense or last chance? Because when you look at networks, like if you do pen testing, a lot of them are pretty secure now. But boy, I can just pick up the phone and say, have that authoritative voice. This is James in IT, and we're doing an update tomorrow, and people will cough up those passwords and usernames. I know because I tried it, and it's kind of scary. Like, what would you do? What do you tell CEOs and CFOs to talk to their employees in regards to phishing attacks,
Oh yeah,
both on the
so I
phone
love
and email?
this. Yeah, I love this question. So I'm seeing a lot more of these kind of uh, phishing voice correlated attacks. So they'll pick up a phone call. I see it a lot, working with small business mediums against small and medium-sized businesses where their help desks are being targeted. So the help desk gets a call and they say, "Hey, I'm an employee. I need my password reset. This is John Smith. I'm late for work. I need to get in really quick to send this proposal out. I've got to get it out in 10 minutes. I need this. I talked to Jim. They've done some research on it, and the help desk goes, okay, cool. Here's your new password. And then they just provided access to this remote attack to get in. So that happens a lot, and I've been seeing that in a spike recently, happening more often. But again, individual users get contact just like you said. They'll get phone calls, things like that. So what I advise people, I do think that individuals could be your greatest strength or your biggest weakness, depending on how they're trained. You know, people are people no matter what. If they're trained correctly, they could be the best human firewall sensor in your network that can pick up abnormal activity and report it better than any tool that you have right now, because they know what's normal, they know what's not normal. They've got that gut feeling that they could say, "Hey, I didn't request this. This doesn't seem right. I know this person. They would never ask me for that." Stuff like that. Or they could just click every link, let everything in, whatever. So I like to make cybersecurity training, security awareness training, like not lame. That's what I always say. So my favorite thing to do for companies and to get people interested is to get people together in a room, like a conference room, whatever, office if you can. Ideally in person. If you can't, you're remote, whatever. You can use remote tools, but I like to bring up some convincing phishing emails that users have reported to us. So I might take like the top 3 to 5 phishing emails over the last 3 months or 6 months, because these are the best source of intelligence you're ever going to get, because they actually targeted your company. They used, potentially people's names. They use brands, vendors, organizations that you trust, techniques that they think are going to work against your organization versus you pulling something out from your phishing tool or pulling something from a blog or something. Like, these are the most custom tailored ones towards you. Using those as example, putting them in front of people and saying, okay, cool, explain to me what are some suspicious indicators in this email. And then we'll walk through it from top to bottom. Like, let's look at the sender, let's look at the recipient, let's look at the subject, the greeting, the body, any links, attachments, the signature block, misspellings, things like that. Like, whatever you want to focus on. You pick a few things, you're not going to cover everything. Have them show you. Then the next slide, you highlight those things that you wanted them to see. And then you're reinforcing that training and saying, okay, these are the things that I hope you guys would have saw. They can talk about it, and then bring in like a box of really good donuts to get people together and say, cool, this was good training. We like it. We love donuts. It was awesome. But people are doing it together in a group. So that way, when they go back to the office, ideally, if they're sitting near each other or they're in the same building, same office, same floor, whatever that is, they get a suspicious email from Mike or Joe or Tim or someone randomly. They could say, hey, this looks weird to me. What do you think? you're on the payroll team or the finance team, or you deal with this customer too. Like, should they be asking me for this, invoice when they usually go to you or they usually go to someone else in the organization? And then it kind of has that cohesive measure of people working together. They put a name to the face. They know who to report these messages to, and then you can reinforce that along the way. So do that a couple times a year. But I don't learn a lot watching videos. So like if you send me a video and say, hey, this is your annual cybersecurity awareness training, like watch this 3 to 5 minute video or 30-minute video, whatever it is, like I'm not going to get much out of it. But if I'm in an environment where I can see something, I can interact with other people, there's a live human in front of me, like I will learn way more in that environment. That's just me. Other people are different. There's games and there's quizzes and things like that, and those work for some environments. But that's what I love to do. That's what I love people to do when I hear about those different programs, and then integrating, real world attacks. So things that either people report or you read about on news sites or you hear about in blogs, and just trying to educate your workforce and say, hey, this is important to us because we're in this industry or we use vendors that are similar to that, or just because we're a small business doesn't mean we're immune to some of these different attacks.
How much have we lost by sending so many people to work remote? You were talking about, hey, like, can you look at this email real quick? They talk to the person in the cubicle next to them, but people are alone in their living rooms doing their work, and they don't have that anymore. How much has that affected the effectiveness of phishing?
So I think it's increased a lot for a few different matters. So first of all, when you're in a corporate environment, yeah, you're in a different mindset. You might be dialed in a little bit more because you're in person, you're in the office, you've got other peers around you. You might be a little bit more attuned to what's going on. But also, when you're logged into a corporate network and you're physically there, there are some security controls that are in place that aren't going to be, at your house. When you're at home, hopefully you're VPN'd in, that secure connection from your home environment to the corporate network. That's great. Hopefully everything's set up correctly and it works, perfectly, but it doesn't always work that way. Now you're integrating all these different
Come
aspects
on,
into it
Nick.
where you,
You
what's
know
up?
they're not. You know they're not in a secure network when they're working at
Uh,
home.
Yes, exactly. Or they're at that coffee shop, on the street or Starbucks or in the
Yeah.
library,
You know
whatever
their
that is. So
Wi-Fi password is like their address and their cat's name.
exactly. So from my standpoint, that opens up a lot of risk that wasn't previously thought of when they were implementing controls. So I think one, phishing, the tactics aren't going to change that much whether or not you're home. I just think you have less security in place, less detection mechanism, less logging and things like that when you have people working remote in that type of environment. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
and it
wrong, and I
opens
think.
up another
Go ahead.
point that people. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Nick.
You're okay.
Uh, if you're on the same network as like your kid who's like downloading hacks for Roblox, and or he gets phished, then they're on your network now, and your network's connected to the corporate network. Uh,
Yep.
you know, so there's like that other attack vector too.
100%. And then also think about like all the IoT devices, like the Ring cameras, the crock pot, the toaster, the washer and the dryer, all those things. Security wasn't thought about those products when they were first released. That's usually an afterthought. A lot of those are embedded operation or OSs, so they don't have, the ability to update as quickly, or they don't have a lot of security tools that are able to be applied to them. And you're just kind of opening that aperture so much because you have so many different devices now on the network, and it just makes the security teams have to work a lot harder now to make sure that they've got the correct logging in place, the right detection and tools, to help quickly identify those and mitigate those type of attacks.
It's not like a home network's going to have a VLAN that the cameras are on either. Everything's pretty much just right there.
Yeah, I mean, some cybersecurity people would have that, but yeah, you're right.
Your
Most of
average
them,
person's not just going to be, oh, I got
no,
access to the cameras. I remember when people were hacking the cameras, that was pretty funny because it was so easy.
I guess
yeah,
it's funny. I'm not saying
It's funny. I was telling the guy they hacked, but it was surprising how easy it was.
tracking when people are home and when they're not. So I think if they're nefarious, using it for nefarious purposes, they can. match cybercrime with regular crime, right?
They were
Yep.
shipping the cameras with just the username is admin, the password is password. So if the person didn't change it, you had access.
Or they get the door pirates, right? People that steal your Amazon packages.
Yeah.
They can see
Wood
on the camera
pirates.
right when the Amazon person drops it off. So then they like go out and get it, right? Ding, free money, right? Um, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your book. Um, you introduced the Pickerel framework, Picerl framework. What inspired its creation? What does it stand for? And how can it help businesses?
Yeah. Great question, Joe. So Pickerel, it's a six-step like incident response framework that I recommend all teams to follow if you've got an incident response program. It starts with preparation, that's the P, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and then lessons learned. And it's kind of like a cyclical, iterative process. Any organization of any size incident, can use it. And I always recommend, just writing this on the board, starting with the P down and then there's different steps you can see where you're at during this process. I learned about this in some certification courses. I think I took a SANS course that talked about this, and I said, this is really interesting. We've just kind of fought through all these incidents in the past, and got to the end, and then we have this list of all these things we're going to implement at the end, and then sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And then I took this course, and I was like, oh, there's already this process. It's super easy. You just remember this six-letter word, and then you're good to go. So it starts with preparation. That's everything you're doing before the incident. That's like your cybersecurity controls, your policies, your processes, the training, the tabletops, all that stuff you're doing prior to the incident occurring. Identifications like that alert that triggers. So that's like a malware alert, or someone comes and says, hey, my computer's running slow. I got this phishing email. I clicked the link, or I didn't click the link. And then you find out they did click the link. Happens all the time. And then you take a look at it. But that's how you get notified that there is an incident on your network. After the incident, then you've got to go to containment. That's like isolating this device on its own island. So you don't want it to spread. You don't want it to move to other devices or anything like that. You want to kind of put it in a place that's safe that you can take a look at it. You can figure out what's going on. Maybe cut it off from network traffic, getting out to the internet, things like that. Depending on what your program is and the level of maturity that you have, it's going to vary all over the board. And then eradication is removing that. So if it's a piece of malware, you're going to run some type of tool or scanner to remove that from your environment. If it's, an account is compromised, you're going to reset the password, rebuild the account, whatever that works out to be. And then recovery is returning that to a good known state. So that's like if we had to reimage the machine, let's make sure it works like all the other machines. Let's make sure it's got the right operating system. It's got, the antivirus protection on it. It's got the VPN client. It's got everything that they need to do to go back to work. Same with the account. If we've got to rebuild an account, delete an account, create a new one, things like that, it's got to look like everything else so that the individual can do their job again, or whatever this function was, if it's a process or a piece of equipment on a manufacturing floor or in a server room, something like that. So that goes back to a good known state. Um, and then my favorite part, which not many teams do, which is one of the biggest areas of improvement, is this whole lessons learned process. And that's where you just sit down, you take a look at what happened from start to finish and say, okay, what went really well? What didn't go really well, and how can we get better for the next time? So like we had these controls in place, they worked really good. We were missing this tool. It would be really, really good if we had it, or it would have increased our time to recovery, or whatever that is. It would have made things a lot easier to parse through all this data. And then how can we get better next time? So could we do more training? Could we buy this tool? Can we reallocate things? And like the best thing that I heard early in my career, the CISO told when I was in an incident response team, was never let a good incident go to waste. And it was like, this is your time now. The iron is hot. This is when you need to make the changes for your organization, because if you don't, business is going to move along, things are going to keep going. You're not going to get any better, and then the same thing is going to happen, a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, a month later, and you're going to be in the same situation where you're going through this incident response process. So use these incidents as like learning tools. Everyone gets breached. I don't care how big or small your company is. It's only a matter of time. Like the best companies with the high-end cybersecurity professionals from all over the world, they still get breached. And then the mom and pop shops with no IT staff and, shoestring budget and maybe like an antivirus program running somewhere that's unlicensed, like they still get breached too. So no one's immune to this. You haven't found out, or it just hasn't been your unlucky day yet. So having this plan in place, having something like Pick a Roll where your team goes through that, having some good policies in place, can all help you mitigate the impact to that, make it less painful, hopefully, not a major financial burden, and you can respond really quickly and recover.
Yeah, it's amazing how large the IT budget gets when you're experiencing downtime due to a hack.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And you just think of some of those critical systems, like if email goes down, like businesses come to a screeching halt. Like you
Yeah.
could do a lot without that, but once you take email out of the picture, it's like, you've got all your communication, you've got all order processing a lot of times, like in vendors are sending invoices and communication and sales and things like that. And it's tough. So
Or
exactly.
Speaking of invoices, a lot of times when people fish, they're borrowing some kind of authority, like posing as Coinbase or
Yep.
AT&T. But I had a situation even this morning where my insurance clients had a hacker get into their email and send a invoice to one of their clients and said we changed our banking information.
Yep.
How do we identify those that are coming from trusted sources, and how do we know if those are quote unquote fishes?
Yeah, so I think what you're explaining is a business email compromise. So a legitimate vendor that you have a relationship with, their account was compromised, and they sent an email on the vendor's behalf to that individual. So if you look at the email, you look at all the details, like everything in the email looks legit. Like you could scrub that header line by line. You could scrub the body of the message. There's no embedded links that are suspicious. The attachment looks okay, but it's just requesting that financial payment. And unfortunately, that's not really a technical control. That's something where you have to have a policy or process in place to identify that behavior. And my general recommendation is like use a second form of communication for any kind of changes that are sensitive in nature regarding finances like this. So if it's a wire transfer or an invoice or a direct deposit ACH, whatever that is, and you want to change that to a different bank, then pick up the phone and call someone. If they're emailing you, like maybe get a text message or have someone talk to you out of that mode of communication so that you're not processing that, especially if it's a bank that's out of the ordinary, something that's out of the country, that's not regionally located, that's not a large bank. Then I'm extremely like, yeah, that needs to be probably delayed by a few days too. Like our processes, we're not going to process that for 3 days or 5 days just to get some time in between that, um, and slow that down a little bit. But if I see something that's like, hey, we need to change our routing information to this bank in the Cayman Islands, I'm like, no,
Yeah, but it's got to be done on both sides. Like I can't unilaterally change my processes, right? And say like that's that because like in this case, I could have a callback provision on my protocols, but the person that my vendor doesn't, and they're getting directions from me, really from the hacker, to change my bank account information. So really, we have to preempt that and tell them like we're not going to change our bank account information without like giving you like a call, or you need to call
yeah,
us back if like put in your contract like you need to call us back if there's any change, otherwise we're not responsible for any payments you make, to a hacker or something like that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that I think that would be an outstanding, requirement to set up front, just to level set with how that process is. And, unfortunately, these vendors get hit all the time. These BECs are very, very common, and that goes back to the basics. Someone gets an email, they click a link, they open an attachment, their account gets compromised, and the attackers log in from somewhere, outside of this normal activity, and take control of the account. I just had an incident like with that last week where we responded to it. We did our investigation. We found the initial email. We contacted the vendor. We said, hey, we think your account's compromised. You're sending this email. We sent them a screenshot of that because we didn't want to send them the full email to help spread this further. And within 10 seconds of them looking at the email, they said, oh, yeah, I got that from another vendor 2 days ago. I got this exact
Uh,
email. And we were like, Oh, okay. I'm like, well, the other vendor's not our client. You might want to reach out to them and say, hey, they're probably compromised. They sent you the same email. You click the link, you put in your information, your account was compromised. I would bet a lot of money that they were also compromised, and this is just keeping this attack going on and on.
It
But
just keeps
luckily,
going.
yeah, it just keeps going, and that's usually what happens. Usually, they will try and spread out as deeply as they can, get like a good understanding of what the environment is. They'll sit on a mailbox for a little bit, filter through some of the emails. They'll put in. I've seen rules created in the inbox
Very
that will
sneaky.
yeah, identify things that are like invoice, credit card payment, things like that. Maybe send that to an external email account, things like that. Then they'll hop back in the email account and say, okay, cool, they're talking about an invoice payment. I should pay attention. And then they'll do their stuff like what you said, Joe, like, hey, don't send it to our normal process, send it over here. And unfortunately, again, this works. It's been going on for a long time. Some of the basics aren't in place across the board, and that's what makes it easy for these accounts to get compromised, and then these attacks to spread really quickly.
Perfect. Perfect. Do you have any questions, Mike?
No, I pretty much got the main one I want to talk was addressing the human element. I have more of a comment. I like your system because it's simple. The challenge that we have in our space is we'll throw a ton of stuff at people, and then on the moment of impact, kind of like when you're on the court or the field, they blow it because the human mind can't think of all this complex stuff, but they can think of an acronym, and it solves a big problem very simply.
Oh, absolutely. So I think complexity is one of the biggest enemies of cybersecurity. It's like the
one Hundred
more
percent.
agents and things that you get involved in software that you're trying to get on your computer to protect things, the more complicated things get, and the harder it is to make sure everything's working correctly, that your logs are correctly. I mean, this is like the CrowdStrike agent that caused all the airlines and the massive issue like 2 or 3 years ago, where they pushed that update. It was supposed to work great. They never have issues, and then they blue screened of death all these Windows machines, and it was like, okay,
Hmm.
that's problematic, and it's because you have this advanced cybersecurity tool, this EDR agent. I love CrowdStrike. They're a great company. I've used them before. They bounce back. They're still doing great things, but that is bound to happen, and that's going to keep happening. Where we try and move really quickly, we try and make everything work. The test environment isn't there, and it's not as thorough as it should be, and then something breaks. The business is impacted, and bad things happen. So trying to keep things very simple and basic is the best approach. It's not always sexy. People want to buy like the latest and greatest tool with the blinking lights and I mentioned the AI ML stuff. Like that is like the new buzzword. It's like, can I get AI integrated into my program? And it's like, well, do you have the basics in place? Do you know what's on your network? Do you have an asset inventory? Do you have a software inventory? Do you have critical assets identified? Probably not. So then, in my opinion, you shouldn't move to this super sophisticated EDR agent that's going to do all these crazy things and solve all these problems that you don't even really have yet because you don't know what you have. You don't have the basics in place, and that's what a lot of companies struggle with. And trying to make things simple, and that's kind of why we started Entoo, because we wanted to get companies into cybersecurity and handle that for them so that they don't have to focus on getting into the zeros and ones, the bits and the bytes. They can do their business, and we can focus on the cybersecurity aspect because it's challenging. Things move really quickly. It's hard to understand what all these different companies are offering. Do you need it? Do you not? Do I throw money at this problem and not this problem? It's just how to protect your business, because cybersecurity needs to be a business enabler, not a disabler. The second that you disable business because of cybersecurity, like, you're probably not going to be there much longer, because
Yeah.
businesses have to make money. They've got to continue, and they've got to grow, and they've got to process stuff. So you've got to make it easy for them. And if you
Yeah,
don't,
and
then you're doing them a disservice.
absolutely. Yeah, I follow you on LinkedIn, Nick, and everyone should follow Nick Oles on LinkedIn. He shares some good stuff, and I think like a couple days ago, you shared that this Logitech 1986 mouse from
The
1986 had a
mouse.
200-page manual for a
Yeah.
mouse, right? Like talk about over complexity.
Yeah.
User manual.
Exactly. Yeah, it was crazy, and I remember those days, like the old mouse with. I even reference this, like back in the day, they used to have the track balls. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
Oh yeah,
it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, and like you would use it for a little bit, all of a sudden it would stop working. You'd like unscrew it, it'd be like covered in dirt, or there'd be like hair wrapped around it or something crazy, and you're like, "Ah, I gotta
Absolutely.
like clean this up and put it back in." And it's like now that's I don't even know if you could buy a mouse with a manual trackball anymore. I mean, everything
They
is
have that nice feel to them though, like the mouse, like the rubbery,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
smoothness.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was yeah, it was. It was kind of like a almost like a lacrosse ball but smaller. It was like firm and yeah, I remember that very vaguely, but just trying to keep things simple, keep things basic. I referenced in that post, policies. Like policies are the rules to your cybersecurity game, like how you play it, what you can and can't do. If you've got really long, in-depth, highly technical policies, no one is going to read them, myself included. And
No.
this is my space. You guys are in it too. But if it's very clearly written, it's concise, and it makes sense, then okay, like people might take a look at them, they might follow them, they might understand what's going on a little bit better than having this massive list of policies that are stored in a share drive somewhere because they cover every little scenario and uh, potential outcome in your organization. That no one really wins in that type of environment. So try and keep things simple as best as possible.
Yeah, the only person that wins is the technical writer that gets paid by the word, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, because then they have to redo it again in a couple years and they
I
start all
can't
over again
imagine
from
200
scratch. And
pages. Like, what the hell do they do? Like the schematics on the mouse, like down to the electrical. I mean, it's just a damn mouse.
yeah,
Logitech's
yeah,
still at it. You know, they came out with this new mouse with an AI button on
oh, I
it.
don't think
Yeah,
I've seen that yet. That's
yeah. You press it and it opens ChatGPT basically.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. That's exactly what we need. So I don't want to like bash AI so much because I think it is a super useful tool. People get a lot of value out of it, and from like the phishing realm, I've had people ask me like, "Hey, what are you seeing people use AI for?" And it's a really interesting space right now with AI. So some of the main things from the attack perspective, I think it's made crafting emails in different languages very easy for attackers. So I used to teach all the time. If you see spelling errors, like that's a strong indicator. They're not native English speakers. The email's wrong. Like proceed with caution. I'm not seeing that as much. Not to say that spelling isn't an indicator of a suspicious email, but within 2 seconds, I can go to ChatGPT or whatever my AI model is, and I can say, "Hey, write me a phishing email about invoices in 7 languages," and it's going to write me that phishing email super quick. I don't have to translate it; it's already done. Um,
Well, first of all,
like
you
you
have to
talked,
preempt it though. You have to say like
you do.
I'm doing a project for a cybersecurity research project, and now I need, and then it'll write it for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. You have to do some prompt engineering, I think, is
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
yeah. So like
formal term
the
for that.
guardrail. Sorry, I'm talking over you. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I just think that's the formal term for it. But yes, you have to give it some guardrails, like you're about to say. As a security researcher or as I don't know, as a student or something like that, to give you some cover terms. But another thing that I've seen, I know Mike, you talked a little bit about these impersonations. I've seen ChatGPT and other AI models to create very convincing models and logos and things like that. So saying like, "Hey, this is a Coinbase logo. Give me something very similar to that, or use this background and let me edit it briefly." So I think that's been used a lot. And then there was a SANS course again. I haven't taken this yet, but I heard from an individual that I'm friends with. He mentioned a course that was using AI to go through social media, collect information about individuals, and then craft phishing emails based off what they could find on some of these social media sites. And I thought that was fascinating. Haven't dug into it much yet, but the ability is out there. You can create your own like AI models to do things like that, to go out on social media, to gather open source information about people, and then use that to make convincing phishing emails. So I think it'll continue like everything else, a cat and mouse game. We'll
Yeah.
see attack spikes, we'll see controls come in place, and they'll go down and they'll go back up, and it's just one more thing to try and keep a pulse on and integrate into your defense plan.
Nice. I mean, as we land the plane, I wanted to ask you, like, what are cybersecurity experts getting wrong? Like, tell me your contrarian view.
I think we're spending time and money in the wrong things. I think everyone wants all these advanced tools that do all this crazy stuff. They love to throw money at pen tests. They love to throw money at threat hunting, cyber threat intelligence, things like that. I love all of those things. But if you don't have the time or the resources to do them effectively, which a lot of places don't, there's other areas that you could focus your money and your time on that aren't as sexy, that are things like I mentioned, asset inventory policies, basic controls, processes, tabletops, things like that. Everyone loves pen tests. I've done pen tests. I've led them. I've been involved in that whole process. But I couldn't tell you how many times we've done a pen test. We've come back 6, 12, 24 months later, and none of the things have been implemented. They've just
Mm.
taken the pen test. They said, we did it. We met this requirement. Cool. We found all these things. We might have fixed one or two things at most, and they're still on the network and they're still weak. So knowing that, like, hey, if you get a pen test, you need to dedicate some time and some money and some resources to fixing whatever they find. If you want to get into threat intelligence, you need people that can spend time, going through data, that are involved in, trusted organizations that are going to be able to use some of that to do threat hunts and things like that. And I think a lot of people just kind of jump towards that space because it's like, oh, I want to do that a lot. I want to have my own malware engineer team, and it's like, cool, that's great, but do you even have all your systems patched? Do you know where they are? Do you have that stuff in place? And we kind of jump to the other side of the spectrum, and I think that's hurting a lot of organizations. And I think we could do a lot better just focusing on the basics, getting back to you know what we should be focusing on, and starting small and going up from there.
Are you an AI optimist or AI pessimist? Do you think we're gonna have Skynet or Star Trek?
I'm an optimist, honestly. I think it will be good in the long run, but I'm also like a realist to think it's not going to happen overnight. I don't think it's going to replace everyone's jobs. Like, I don't think it's going to destroy the world. I mean, I went to a conference last year, and they talked about, in the early 2000s, they said, Google is this crazy search engine that's going to be able to contain all this information. It's going to crush all of the IT help desk jobs because anyone can find a manual to fix any kind of IT problem within a matter of seconds online. And it's like, okay, that's true. You can go to Google, you can find a manual for almost any technology you want, but there's still help desk people that have to interpret that,
That's a good
fix the
point.
problem, and go through there. And I think AI is the same thing. It's like, okay, cool. You can go to AI, you can find a lot of data really quickly. You can parse through large amounts of data very, very quickly. But again, like, there still needs to be someone that has to go through that, interpret it, come up with a game plan, and implement something. So I don't
Right.
think
Go,
it's
go
gonna.
find your IT guy and give him a hug.
Yeah, I don't think so, and I think there's a lot of value to it, and I use it, and I think it's great, but I think there's also some risk to it, and I don't think all of the hype 100% is accurate for what is to come in the next, I'll just say 5 years, because who knows what happens after that.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like you can tell somebody how to do something, and they're gonna be like, "Okay, can you do it for me?"
Exactly.
Like, thank you
yeah,
for telling me this is too complicated for me. Just can you do it? Let me pay you. That's
yeah, absolutely. And one of the things too that I've seen, no one really has an understanding of how to govern AI in a business. It's so new. We don't really have that locked down, and people are, uploading spreadsheets and policies and using things to write job descriptions and stuff. And that's all great. But, once you upload that data, it's no longer a part of your organization. It's part of someone else's organization. And for a lot of places, that's fine. Maybe if you have a paid AI, maybe you're paying so that it doesn't leave your environment or something like that. Most don't. But if not, if you're using like a Google Gemini, like, hey, that's now their data too. So there's some risk there that people haven't, fully taken into account of, if I upload this spreadsheet that's got password information and I tell it to write me a macro for something, cool, I got this macro, it works awesome. But also, what did I give up to get this macro? Did I just give up all of the corporate passwords or something like that? So I think that's an interesting part of AI too that I think we'll see evolve more over time. As attackers start to use it more, and as we see more data go into the platforms.
great. And how can people find you and your company, Nick?
Yeah, great question. So I'm active on LinkedIn. That's the only form of social media that I use. I'm not smart enough or have enough time or cycles in my head to kind of use all the other different platforms. So I'm absolutely happy to chat on LinkedIn. You can send me a message. You can follow me. If you watch this podcast, you send me a message or a cool joke. Maybe I'll send you a copy of the book. We'll see. I don't know, but that is kind of how you can get a hold of me. How you can talk to me. My company, Entoo Security, we've got our own website. We've got a LinkedIn page too. You can follow us. We do some other social media pages or platforms, I should say. So we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn too. So we've got our website. You can find us on there. If you want to chat, reach out. I love to speak on podcasts like this. I love to speak at conferences, or if you just have questions, my partners will hop on a call. We'll chat through cybersecurity. I mean, our main goal, like, I love helping people stop bad actors from impacting good people. So if you've got a question about something, you want to chat about something, like I would be happy to chat with you about it. Hopefully we can make it harder for these bad guys to wreak havoc on people. So that's kind of like our overall goal. So if you've got a question you want to chat, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're out there and you like, comment, and subscribe, we'll send one of you, lucky person, one of Nick's books. So you just have to like,
Maybe we'll
comment,
even get
subscribe, and maybe
yeah,
share it
comment.
too.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get some signed copies out there. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
Anything else
guys.
you want to say to the zeitgeist out there? Got lots of people listening.
Nope, I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. It's been a blast. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're still listening, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. We don't have any sponsors, so the cost of this podcast is just share it with one of your friends. So we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on the next one.